Hello, this is Mary James with Passive House Accelerator. Thank you for tuning in to this special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast, recorded live at the Retrofit Canada conference in Vancouver, BC. And I'm speaking now with Keith Burrows from the Atmospheric Fund. And first, can you just tell us what the Atmospheric Fund does?
Sure. TAF is a nonprofit. We were founded in 1991. Our mandate is climate mitigation. And we do that through a variety of ways. We will invest in companies and projects that are doing decarbonization work. We provide grants to municipalities and nonprofits that are focused on decarbonization. We run programs, which is the area in which I work. Our Retrofit Accelerator is one of the programs that we run. And then all of the data and the learnings we collect from this work informs our policy advocacy. So we're a small organization, but we pack a pretty big punch, I would say. And
you get your funding from the Canada Infrastructure?
No, so we have an endowment. So originally we were funded with an endowment from the City of Toronto. And then so our work was focused in the city only. Subsequent endowments we had from the province of Ontario and the federal government. So now that allows us to work throughout the GTHA, and it gives us some flexibility in what we're able to do in our work. It's a nice position to be in.
That's the Greater Toronto.
In Hamilton area, yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Acronyms just kind of flow off the tongue, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your Retrofit Accelerator program, how long that's been in existence, and what, generally speaking, it consists of.
Sure. So we launched the Retrofit Accelerator 3 years ago now. We did that we had some preliminary funding, so it was self-funded from TAF originally, but also we had some funding from the McConnell Foundation, Trottier Family Foundation, and CMHC, who saw the value in this kind of work. Essentially what we're doing is facilitating deep retrofits in multi-residential buildings. And TAF has been doing that work, retrofits in multi-residential buildings, for over a decade now. And over that time, we developed a model for delivering retrofits. And we've kind of taken that and expanded it for the Retrofit Accelerator work we're doing. But also we're much more ambitious with the projects that we're undertaking in terms of emissions reductions.
When you say much more ambitious, can you just tell me, what does that mean to you?
So you can imagine the projects that were done a decade ago, we were going after emissions reductions of 30%, which at the time seemed appropriate. It's no longer adequate, right? So now we're really looking at projects that are going at a minimum threshold of 40%, which essentially means you're not doing new gas equipment in any of these projects. But what we're seeing in reality is the projects that we're working with are all 50% emissions reductions to 85% emissions reductions. So we're seeing that's the kind of the level of ambition we have now. And that's a really important aspect of the work. And that's something that's changed over the 10 years we've been doing projects.
So you're the ones that are achieving 80% emissions reductions, I assume, are involving some sort of building envelope?
For sure, yeah. And we have, we're working with a project that is going after Retrofit certification. And then we have other projects that are doing overcladding as part of the solution, fuel switching and overcladding, not necessarily going after certification, but it's certainly, in line with Passive House for sure in terms of the goals.
TAF also, didn't they pre-qualify some panel providers for that overcladding?
So we kind of really see this as a lot of the work we do as part of the accelerator is to, work with building owners and help them through the retrofit process, kind of like guide them through the process and support them where we can. We also will undertake very specific market development activities where we see there's a need. And that's one example. We just finished this pre-qualification exercise where we did a technical pre-qualification of prefabricated overcladding suppliers who were willing to do retrofits in the area in which we work, the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. And it was a long process we learned a bunch, from doing that work. We brought on WSP, their building science experts, who helped us with the technical evaluation to do like the technical evaluation on the building science side of things. And yeah, it was really interesting because part of the work that we did was to identify the players in the market who are actually doing prefabricated panels today, and try to assess them and encourage them to participate in this pre-qualification. Because what we're doing is creating the roster. We want to make it public so that anyone who's looking to do some kind of an overcladding project can potentially pull from the rosters, or at least that can inform, the work that they're doing. So yeah, it's been, we haven't published the roster yet. The response was not as strong as we hoped in terms of the number of parties, because it's kind of an indication of the market. I think right now it's not super well developed, but we have a few projects that are doing prefabricated overcladding, and some interesting initiatives to look at prefabrication versus site built. And in one case, we're looking at a project and we're looking at it logistically, but also from a cost perspective. What is the difference between doing site built versus importing panels from Europe versus Ontario built panels, and what does that look like? And anyways, some interesting work there. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah, not to say that not every project is going to get that kind of treatment. Like the overcladding is appropriate for some buildings, for some projects, and it's important. We need to kind of really, I think, develop that market for prefabrication. But a lot of projects will be kind of like decarbonizing over time, I think, is where a lot of these buildings will.
Yeah. And so just roughly, how many retrofit projects do you guys usher in or consult on in a given year?
Oh, it's a good question. So, I mean, we're scaling up now because we have some new funding that's allowing us to scale. The Deep Retrofit Accelerator Initiative funding we were talked about in a panel yesterday. So right now we've had 13 projects that we've added to our roster just since the end of last year. We have probably 25 projects on the go in different phases, and that's from like feasibility study through some of them are in construction, and some of them we're doing what we call like optimization commissioning. So the post retrofit optimization and monitoring component. That's essentially kind of the roster that we're dealing with right now.
That's really exciting because, they're, I'm sure, going to be really interesting examples for other building owners to replicate or model themselves on.
That's the hope, right? So we're trying to make sure we capture all the lessons learned from these projects and share them as broadly as we can, to make sure that others can benefit from the work. In some cases, we'll be doing case studies. In other cases, we'll try to collect the lessons learned and share them in some means that's going to be kind of like easy to find and to accept.
Well, hopefully we can get you on the accelerator at some point to talk about the lessons
learned.
Sure,
for sure. There's a bunch.
Yeah.
Already, yeah.
So when you said you're been able to expand your program thanks to the funding, can you just talk a little bit about what that means for your organization? Yeah,
I mean, it's allowing us to hire, for one thing. We're a very small team. We have 7 people at the moment. So like we need to expand that if we're going to scale. We already have more work than we can handle, which is a good problem to have, but also it's a challenge. So that hiring is a big piece of it. Also, we're really trying to expand our partnerships because we're never going to be a big team. So we need to rely on trusted partners to help us get these projects done. And so that's a place where we're spending, we're focusing a lot of attention. And that includes also developing partnerships with private investors who have potentially like banks, for example, like who have building owners who want to do retrofits and they want to potentially provide financing, and we can help hopefully by supporting the building owner through that process and de-risking the retrofit from the lender's perspective.
Well, that's really exciting. And I wish you luck, and I hope to hear more from what TAF is doing because